Hello and welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm John Bachman, and talking to us now is the GOP frontrunner for the U.S. Senate race in Virginia, former Governor George Allen. Governor Allen recently received an endorsement from the American Conservative Union, but still faces three other candidates in the state's primary next week. It's great to talk to you, Governor.
Good to be with you and all your viewers.
All right, well, first, the Richmond Times-Dispatch recently ran an article and called you, quote, more focused and more disciplined during this race. Now, give us your thoughts on that characterization.
Well, the characterization, I suppose, is accurate in that the reason I've gotten off the sidelines and into the fight for this pivotal Senate seat is I don't like the direction of our country, and I think this is truly a time for choosing in our country. Virginia's Senate race is, in many respects, going to determine whether we have common sense conservatives leading the U.S. Senate or continue with Harry Reid and their obstructionist views. And these are serious times, and I think it's very important that one in a campaign is disciplined, is focused, and motivating and inspiring people for positive, constructive ideas, reforms, and solutions that'll reinvigorate the entrepreneurial spirit of our country with the right economic, energy, regulatory, and education policies.
And we will ask you about some of those issues you just mentioned in a second. I also want to talk about the polls in this primary. You have in a pretty large lead compared to your challengers in this race in the Virginia GOP primary. What do you think, what message has resonated with voters and catapulted you into such a large lead in this race?
Well, people know me, and they know my wife, Susan. We know Virginia, having served Virginians in the Senate as well as governor, and that helps. It's not that you don't make friends just in the midst of a campaign. It does help to know people and the communities throughout Virginia. I'm the only candidate with a proven record of getting results as governor as well as a U.S. senator on everything from reducing taxes to freezing college tuition to welfare reform to keeping taxes off internet access, the education opportunity tax breaks for families to be able to get computers for their children. There's a variety of things that people know me and I know Virginia, and that helps. We're taking nothing for granted, notwithstanding those polls. You take nothing for granted. June 12th is an important day. The message we want to send is a message to Washington across the Potomac, that we in Virginia want to take control of our own destiny. We envision a better future.
You talked about voters sending a message, and this certainly has been an interesting primary season in the GOP. In Indiana, longtime incumbent Dick Lugar lost to Richard Murdoch. Orrin Hatch barely survived his primary. In Utah, and Deb Fischer surprised a lot of folks with her win in Nebraska. Have you paid much attention to those other races? And if so, what do you think they tell us about GOP voters in this election cycle?
Well, we've been mostly focused on Virginia's elections, and obviously you read the news of what the results are in other states. In Virginia, Susan and I have been talking to people throughout our Commonwealth of Virginia, and so that's where our focus is. And the fact that, as you said in the introduction, that the American Conservative Union has endorsed me, as well as Citizens United, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the NRA has endorsed us as well. All of that really helps. There's a lot of people joining with us who do want to see America beginning to ascend again because they know my proven record, and it's a positive agenda to get America on the track towards prosperity and opportunity for all.
Some pundits have predicted that this Senate race is essentially a coattail race, as goes the presidential race, so goes the Virginia Senate election. Is that true, or do you see the Senate candidates like yourself having a bigger impact on the presidential race?
Oh, we're all running as a team. People in Virginia know me, and they do know Tim Kaine as well. And we both have served Virginians as governor, and they'll compare those records as a good indicator of what someone would do in the future. The presidential race, I don't think people know President Obama or Governor Romney as well as they know Tim Kaine and myself. So we're going to be pretty much running as a team. There may be some ticket splitters, but I think the main thing that folks in Virginia can look at is what did Tim Kaine do and what did I do for the folks of Virginia. When I was governor, the Democrats controlled the legislature. We were still able to get some monumental reforms done, whether it's the abolition of parole, welfare reform, high academic standards, freezing college tuition, while cutting taxes by $600 million. And at the end of my 4 years, over 300,000 net new jobs were created in Virginia. Tim Kaine he tried to raise taxes by $4 billion. He failed, but he also ended up with over 30% in skyrocketing tuition in our colleges, and over 100,000 Virginians lost jobs while Tim Kaine was governor. And that's a tale of two different philosophies. If one's in favor of lower taxes, prompt permitting, reasonable regulations, a quality, educated workforce and population, as well as affordable energy, compared to Tim Kaine wanting to raise taxes, being for the cap and trade energy tax scheme, against the Keystone Pipeline, shutting down rest areas while he's jetting around America as the handpicked chairman of the Democratic National Committee during the last quarter of his service as governor. I'm really looking forward to comparing our records and our vision for America's future.
You have made the repeal of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, a cornerstone of your campaign, as well as Tim Kaine's support for the Affordable Care Act. Now, if the Supreme Court rules that it is unconstitutional this month, how will you adjust your campaign or use that to your advantage?
Well, it depends on how the ruling from the Supreme Court comes down. They could strike down the whole law, which would be fine as a matter of my views of the issue. It may be that they just strike down parts of it. I still think health care will be an issue in the future. Hopefully it gets struck down as unconstitutional, because I do think the individual mandate is unconstitutional. It's an overreach by the government. And I also don't like the way that the federal government in Obamacare is commandeering the states and expanding the Medicaid rolls, which will cause, obviously, a lot of budgetary harm in the states. I think Medicaid ought to be run by the states and give the states greater flexibility to run it. So let's assume that it is knocked out one way or the other. Healthcare still is an issue. That's why when I say I want to repeal Obamacare, I also in the next sentence say we need to reform or replace the healthcare system. And one of the things that I think is a really great idea are health savings accounts, where individuals own their own policies and can take them from job to job and not have to worry about pre-existing conditions because the new employer or new insurance won't cover you or someone in your family that may have some malady or illness. I think small businesses ought to be able to pool together across state lines to get more affordable insurance. That's another good idea. And as far as Medicaid is concerned, like what we did when I was governor with welfare reform 2 years before the federal government passed it, I think the states ought to take the lead in managing Medicaid. I think the states would do it much more efficiently, more effectively, and save the taxpayers a great deal of money.
Well, I also know the issue of job creation, especially for recent college graduates, is a personal one for you. Tell us why, and if you win this primary in the Senate seat, how will you use your office to improve the job environment for young Americans like your daughter?
Well, my daughter Tyler, who's going to soon be turning 24, is one who graduated from college and, like many of others, graduated, this is a few years ago, and moved back home. And young people, right now, the unemployment rate and underemployment rate is too high, and too many young people are not being able to pursue their dreams. So here's what we need to do. We need to reinvigorate the entrepreneurial spirit of our country. And it's very clear what needs to be done. We need a tax code that is more fair, simple, and competitive. If we reduce the taxes, as I propose, on job-creating businesses to 20%, which is better than the international average of 25%. Right now, the taxes are the worst in the world at 35%. If we reduced it to 20%, independent analysis show that over 500,000 new jobs would be created every year. That's 5 million new jobs over a 10-year period. That would send a message to the world that America is open for business again. So that's a way of creating jobs. Another is unleashing our American energy resources. We're blessed with the most energy resources of any country in the world. The federal government, unfortunately, puts them off limits. And so if we'd unleash our American energy resources, there'd be hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs created in our country, besides having more affordable fuel and food and electricity. We'd get more investment into the United States because we'd be more competitive, and we'd be keeping our money here in the United States of America, not being vulnerable to hostile outside forces. So just in those two areas alone, that would create so many more jobs, greater prosperity, and more investment.
Well, last question for you. Tell us about your plans in this final week of the primary and how you plan to bring victory home.
Well, Susan and I are all over Virginia, having rallies and meetings and urging people to get out to vote. We do want to send a message on June 12th. A lot of folks say, oh, you have it made. And my biggest worry is complacency. And we just need to make sure that people who drive cars, use electricity, work for a living, pay taxes, or care about their families get out and vote for George Allen. And Susan and I would really appreciate the votes. And the bigger the victory, the bigger the turnout, the stronger the message that we're sending to President Obama, Tim Kaine, and their Washington liberal allies, that we in Virginia want a more fair tax system, lower taxes, less burdensome regulations, productive energy policies. And in fact, the message we'd be sending is from a fellow who is a longtime farmer, worked at one time for Norfolk Southern Railroad, now runs a flower shop in Bedford. He said, I just want the government to get off my back and out of my pockets. And so that's the message we want to send from Virginia, that we know the way to get our country moving in the right direction. Let's make sure our voices, values, and aspirations are being heard in Washington, and a big victory on June 12th will do that.
All right, very good. GOP Senate candidate in Virginia, George Allen. It's been great talking with you once again.
Thank you, John. Adios.